Perfect. Okay, so we are live on YouTube now, and I will hand it over to Dr. Ash to introduce the session.
Thank you so much. I just want to start by saying, Mila, thank you very, very much for joining us here today. It's meaningful at so many levels, perhaps beyond the realm of my ability to communicate here. Honestly, it is profoundly meaningful to all of us. So I just want to convey my deepest thanks to you for making the time for joining us and for always spreading your beauty and inspiration to the world. Thank you.
Wonderful to be here. Honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mila. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the rest of the family who joins us here. So thank you all so much for making the time, for joining us, and for being part of this conversation. I realize that there are other folks who are tuning in via stream. So welcome everyone to the POP Leadership Conversations, a tribute to our chief mentor. This project aims to strengthen youth leadership and explore tactics that empower the youth to take action and tackle the most pressing environmental issues faced globally. We are conducting a series of conversations on leadership strategies, recommendations, reflections, and examples, each focused on global leadership and a different pressing environmental issue. This initiative is designed and implemented as a tribute to our chief mentor, late Dr. R.K. Pachauri. Today, we have the pleasure and the privilege of speaking with Professor Mila Popovich, the founder of Evolving Leadership and member of the Executive Committee of the World Academy of Art and Science, about using art to communicate science. I also wish to say that Mila is a precious part and member of the POP family. So thank you very much, Mila, once again for joining us. We're absolutely thrilled and delighted to have this time together with you. Thank you and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here. This is indeed, as you say, Ash, a big family and a big global, rather now planetary family, because you have expanded through the work of Dr. R.K. Pachauri, who we honor today. You have expanded the notion of what it means to be a world citizen, to global family, to planetary family, involving and including all life forms and the rights of all life forms and the responsibility that we have with our consciousness to sustain the world at its optimum best for thriving and evolving. So it's wonderful to be here. I want to really, first of all, say thank you to all the organizers, all the wonderful youth. I want to thank the Pachauri family, Dr. Ash, you, Dr. Norma. You guys have been incredible, incredible hosts. And also the entire network, this marvelous ecosystem that Dr. Pachauri started and now you're continuing, of wonderful communities and youth-led organizations that have been seeded around the world. And most importantly, on the uttermost scale, I want to say hello and express my gratitude to the widest audience that might be plugging in here today for the first time. You get to see what the POP family is doing and what it means to show up, pop up, and stand up for sustainable planet and thrivable future.
Thank you from the depths of our hearts to yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I will now go ahead and introduce our guest speaker for the day. Mila Popovich is the founder of Evolving Leadership, program and consultancy for transformational leadership in personal excellence, organizational development, and planetary pathfinding. Mila develops and furthers the potential of individuals, organizations, and communities, attuning them to life-supporting principles and evolving social values. As a contributor and advisor on board of highest-ranking global organizations, she supports the emergence of a new era of human development. An international lecturer and speaker, Mila specializes in ecological literacy, and sustainability, value drivers of the new economies, future education, peace, and cultural diplomacy, new paradigm of human development, and creative sides to future making. She is a fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science and a member of the Millennium Project. Mila is a fellow of Vital Voices, Global Leadership Network, and an associate expert on ethics and gender issues at the European Commission. She is an expert on gender equality impact panel of the Caterva Award, the so-called Nobel Prizes on Sustainability. Mila's work is sourced in three major domains: system sciences and integral knowledge, psychology of transformation, and anticipation of future studies. In her workshops and transformational labs, Mila teaches art and science of the accomplishment and the science of distinctive principles for awakening individual collective genius. We are very, very excited about this conversation. I think it's something very exciting, and we will hear about and we will learn about really interesting things. So I will now hand it over to Ash, who will be asking our first question.
Thank you, Anna. And I'd like to start by saying, Mila, thank you for once again for being here, for your very kind words, and most of all for exemplifying all that we are here to talk about today: leadership at the transformational level, inspiration to the hearts, minds, and souls of the 1.8 billion youth of the world and beyond. So, I just want to convey our gratitude for this very precious time we share together here today and always. We'd love to start the conversation, Mila, if we may, with your reflection on what leadership within the realm of youth and action for transformation and systemic change would be, please.
Hmm. Um, Very often, in the more conventional sense, we hear about leadership as the capacity to lead, right? In other words, to build fellowship, to build the people that follow. And that is a conventional model that we, if we examine carefully the arch of our civilizational development, in so many ways benefited us at certain times when we needed that kind of steady direction, single-handedly guided. But with the evolution, we have to outgrow our own models. And with that, we have to understand that as much of goodness or stability that certain type of leadership has led us to, we are at the tipping point where we see more detrimental effects of conventional leadership than anything. In that process, we are realizing that what's emerging is a model of social leadership. It's a model of collective leadership, but also understanding that from within oneself, the individual is a collectivity within. If you start from the simplest perspective of the fact that we have such complex, incredible personal stories and backgrounds, and also increasingly more complex because of global capacity to travel, exchange information, exchange knowledge and disseminate knowledge, and I mean physically even move. Because of that, we've developed capacity to attach to different communities through different interests, to visit different places that become parts of our inner landscape, not to mention the stories of your background, of parents that might have mixed from different backgrounds, beliefs that you have outgrown or changed or refined. I mean, we're really a complex microsystem within. And then imagine multiplying that exponentially in coming together into a network. While that might be mind-boggling and overwhelming at one point, it is also the greatest source of potential for transformation and self-evolving. So when we start sharing stories about our background, when we start sharing knowledge, then what emerges is a collective intelligence that has the capacity to be greater than some of the parts. We were never parts to begin with. Like I said, we're microcosms, but becomes something larger than that which it's comprised of. And that leads us forward with a sense of direction that if you can, just without being overwhelmed, analyze what the basic needs of the humanity are across any division. Something universal will emerge. Something that is shared will emerge. If you, on the other spectrum, analyze what the aspirations of people are, I'm sure you're going to find universal values and universal aspirations. So there is a place from which to start for shared humanity in all of its diversity. And that's the new model of leadership that is emerging in the consciousness that we all matter, that our individual perspectives are indeed the missing and the most needed part for the larger picture to build, but also the direction which we are all going, while it may seem overwhelmingly intimidating, it is actually a universal path. And in that sense, going within, the deeper we go within, the more universalized human being we are. And we understand that we share the fears, the survival strategies, the needs, but also the highest need for accomplishment, self-actualization, and aspiration across the board. So what leadership consists of is the capacity to mutually, dialogically develop the potential of each other. Understanding that has been seeded by Dr. Pachauri in the World Sustainable Development Forum, and then onto the POP movement, and that you are continuing now. And understanding that we are bound to each other for evolution. We're bound to each other on the basic level for survival, but then to evolve. And we're bound to each other to develop the vision and to act out and enact that vision into the reality of shared vulnerabilities and shared futures. So that's just kind of an introduction, setting the stage for what leadership looks like in this new context. And my God, do we need a stronger and more powerful context than the meta frame of climate change, the meta frame of pandemic, the meta frame of nuclear threat? You know, you have different issues and situations. One that can, you know, with the pressing of a button, detonate the entire planet. This beautiful, breathing, vibrant, teeming with life ecosystem with which we are co-emergent. Our consciousness is entangled with it. And another situation where the intelligence, actually the intelligence of a virus, knows how deeply socially interconnected we are. And that's how it spreads. It uses our vulnerability, but also our greatest blessing that is hiding in plain sight for us, to spread and to show to us how fragile we are, and yet how strong we could be in solidarity if we learn from the intelligence of the virus. And also, or of course, absolutely the meta frame, the challenge that you so bravely are tackling is the question of climate change. There is no point in discussing any other issue if that is not addressed. So apologies there. We get the music here in the background. So part of this conversation, I think, is just the emergence of this harmony in the background, and the melody of all of our voices coming together to speak the truth of the necessity to sing our stories, to express our stories, to actually paint the larger picture of humanity, of what's at stake now and what's at stake of going forward. Then I'll like to discuss later what it would take to engender that kind of empathetic revolution. And I can speak about that a little bit later.
Thank you so much, Mila. I think that's such a fabulous and what a powerful context setting, because, you know, I couldn't agree more. If, you know, we could really unite the beauty and the hearts that, you know, we're surrounded by in this planet. And I think, you know, that in itself would be a transformational experience. And then all that can happen after that is yet another beautiful story. And I just want to say that, you know, you exemplify that goodness, the words that you use to describe, you know, all the opportunity and the beauty that lies ahead is so very powerful. And I also want to say that you underscored such an important point, which is that, you know, the virus certainly does, tap into the vulnerability, and as a consequence, we certainly are in the position that we're in. But at the same time, it offers us this. The flip side is it offers us this opportunity where we can use that same vulnerability to our strength. And if we were to come together in finding the appropriate response and implementing it and seeing it through with that genuine humanity at heart, we can go so far. And I think you also brought up this very, very important point, which is about the issue, the vulnerability and the risks that lie ahead, and actually we're living through because of climate change. And I think that climate change will put put the virus and its impacts, very mild in comparison to what lies ahead if we don't address the issue of climate change and the environment. And I was just going to point out the melody is beautiful because because that is another aspect of exactly what you exemplify and what you're hoping to talk about here, which is that there's so much power in the art and music and so many other forms that we're actually, I think, inertly and inherently blessed with. It's just a matter of really getting in touch with who we are and being able to bring that out, amplify it, and then use that as a force to unite us. It's such a beautiful force too. So thank you so much for setting the context, for also, I just want to say, for being a model along the lines of all that you described, because you truly do exemplify that. So thank you very much.
I would like to really personalize. We heard one form appear when, for example, Anna read my profile. And while those things are becoming increasingly drier, it's more and more dry, and to listen to that kind of representation, it's more of formality in which we have to appear to each other to announce each other's platforms. For me, the way I see it is that there's an announcement of multitudes of domains where I serve, less than titles than I can bear. But if the titles are the guises in which I can appear to deliver the message, which is profoundly humanizing, then so be it. And this is also my encouragement to you, to diversify your presence, whether that's across domains, across disciplines, across platforms, or roles that you have. For me, it has been also across arts and sciences, and really wanting to play with different guises and to show up at different stages to deliver that message at different registers. Okay, but to humanize the story and to personalize the story the way I appear to you, beyond that formality, is my continual focus on those testimonies, on the witnessing to your own life, on expressing your own story, on realization that we all matter. And the poignancy of those words because of the movements that Black lives matter, that the only way all lives can matter if Black lives matter. The only way any life can matter if all life forms matter as well. I mean, you can really, so the significance, the power, the poignancy behind these words, I'm intentionally using them. Now, we all matter. First of all, from the standpoint of that story and testifying to the history through personal life, right? But also, even if we go back to the current situation of the pandemic, I mean, one person can spread the virus, or the virus can use it as a channel. I'm intentionally saying this way. The virus can use you or me or whoever, one person as a channel to, what's the right word? Because I don't like to say infest. To touch the lives and transform, radically transform the lives of others, so too can the cultural mean, the intelligence of a new cultural code, do the same. So you too are always the channel through which, if you realize, if through vulnerability this can happen, through a virus it can happen, why not learn from the exponential multiplication of it through me, through you? So to personalize that story a little bit and to relate to your field, listen, I come from, and I've shared this story with some of you, and I share it again today. I come from the space, from the region that is at the intersections of intersection of East and West, and a really powerful strategic point for many forces. So I come from I was born in the former Yugoslavia, and now I'm in Montenegro. And I've witnessed wars. The place where I grew up, I cannot visit it again. It has been leveled. This is just one story, one part of my life that I want to share. Why am I saying this? Once you witness something, some devastation and brutality, intentional brutality, the intention behind it is actually particularly scary, of that magnitude, you don't walk the earth the same. You don't have the same values. Your even attempt at survival or accomplishment is not the same. Why am I mentioning this? Because once you are conscious of the meta threat of climate change and what's at stake with the notion of sustainability, you don't see things the same way. You cannot develop an organization the same way. Your message is not the same way. That is why you have to humanize your message. That is why you approach it through arts. That is why you approach it through mobilizing hearts. Because what is the point of being over cognitive and over intellectualized all the time? Yes, this is why we need the persuasive power of science, of statistics. We need it. But the same way we need it is me appearing to you in a formal way of saying, listen, this is serious. Why is it serious? Not because I carry a title, but because I spent years of my life building something. If that is the case, if we spend endless centuries in the labs and tracking human development, realizing, my God, what have we done? What have we done? We have built incredible technologies and became slaves of them. We have built incredible edifices and scientific accomplishment and technological advance, but our consciousness lags behind our own tools. It's like giving a sword to a 2-year-old child that is going to devastate everything around her, herself, or himself, including the child. So in the same sense, I'm saying the way I appear formally to you and why it's important to be human, to show up personally and share of oneself and one energy this way. The same way, the persuasive power of science is there. Without the emotional mobilization of the heart through arts, nothing moves. And scientists have seen that. So I will humanize this story yet again and personalize it with you. You all have shared so many amazing moments with Dr. Pachauri. And I remember so many conversations where I sought his advice. I sought his mentorship. And I would ask him one of the most poignant things, which is the question I'm sure we're all collectively asking right now. How do I sustain my energy, my motivation, myself, my small self in the eye of the hurricane as everything is spinning around you, anywhere from news to plastic, to wars, to migrations, come on, you know your own daily overwhelm. How do I sustain myself in the center of my being to kind of maybe be moved like a palm tree, but not uprooted yet again? How have you sustained your motivation and the courage of conviction in the midst of attacks, in the midst of all kinds of negotiations, right? Power struggles. And he would always say something to this effect. I remember in Mexico, and I want to honor what Mexican youth and what Mexico and Mexico City in particular has offered in hosting pop movement and sustainability forum. The message that we kind of molded together was he was always there not to impose or impart, but to dialogically develop. If you are willing in the core of your being to stand alone for the movement when nobody else shows up, like the little prince on the planet. If you are capable to do that every day, to recommit to yourself and to the values that you know are the universal values, then you are the movement. I had a conversation, speaking of Mexico, with a dear friend of mine, a co-creator, an artist, a performing artist, a dear hermana, a sister from Mexico, who called me the other day, and she says, it's hard. It's really hard. I've started this movement in Colorado, and people are not showing up. Some of them are tired. Some of them are disillusioned. Some of them are existentially exhausted. Some of them are sick. Some of them are gone. And she says, what do I do, sister? I said, you stand in the middle of your room and you stand awakened. And then you go and stand in the public space. Didn't a little girl do that and made millions? You stand alone in the public space, in all of your being. You stand on the next stage and the next stage, and then you recognize in the eyes of another that they are somehow, might be in a lonely way, standing just like you. And that loneliness is assuaged in multitude, and then we start standing together, and then we start singing together, and we start dancing together, and then we start exchanging facts together, and then we also start probing facts together, and then we start our own labs and our own scientific experiments and our own innovations. But you stand with the courage of conviction. And to go back to the beginning of the conversation, that is the new leadership. Not the leadership of one strong, typically man, or historical women. It's the leadership of you.
Well, that was absolutely amazing. I completely agree, and your words are so, so inspiring. I would now like to hand it over. Oh, I think Mira left. Oh, she's here. Mira, would you like to ask the next question, or is your connection too unstable? Let's see. Okay, I think she was having
Is
connectivity
Maida
issues.
from the Congo?
No, Mira is
She's
from
from Uganda.
Uganda. Okay.
Yeah.
yes.
Maybe we can move to the next one, and when she comes back, we can. I think.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure. So we will go on to question number 3 by Jerome, who's in Mexico.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Emila. It's a pleasure to meet you. Well, my question would be, how can science be taught through art, and how could this practice bring young children closer to science and at a young age, especially those in developing countries?
Oh, goodness.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful question, especially in developing countries. Well, we have fallen from where I've seen it. We have fallen for many fallacious separations, for many polarizings, right? You have pro-life and pro-choice. What are we really talking about? What kind of division of an argument is that? Absolute nonsense. If you don't have systems of support for all life and for the decision of a life. That's a whole different story. We have equally fallen for the division between biological, the natural, and the cultural, biological and social. We have built our entire systems. In fact, we have built our entire systems, our economies, governance systems, you name it, on the biosocial conflict, counting on that conflict, right? Extracting from the earth, governing other forms, governing other people. Speaking of developing countries, grabbing resources, plundering, right? So another of such polarizations is the one between science and art. You tell me if you are able to be an artist without, for some, knowing chemistry, physics, amongst other things. I mean, since the art forms are developing, there's more digital art and all kinds of things happen. So how can you be an artist if you're not an engineer, if you're not an experimenter, if you're not a visionary, if you're not an innovator, if you're not a chemist, a physicist? How can you be? How can you be an accomplished scientist at a certain level of excellence without being a poet, a philosopher of science, a visionary? It's impossible. I mean, I do not necessarily need to send us back to Leonardo da Vinci or Nikola Tesla, or I mean, you name it. At the certain level of excellence, they're all poets. So that fallacious separation is what the cause of the issue is to begin with. So I have seen, for example, there are so many artists, and so many of them have been also showcased in one of the more recent publications that I had. I co-wrote a paper with an colleague of mine, Julene Siddiq, a composer herself, and system scientist as well, on the systemic engagement of the arts for the social transformation. And you can find it published by the World Academy of Art and Science. Because we kind of gave a scientific framework for it, and then gave so many examples of practices, art and cultural practices from all over the world. So just to kind of shorten the examples. And the possibility here is applying a paradox. This is my proposition. This is my proposition to policymakers, to people like us, and like people in the policy-making seats that are all engaged into realizing SDGs as our new global standards. I mean, this is beautifully unprecedented on the global scale. We have come to an agreement that these are priorities. I mean, this is a huge accomplishment. This is the most positive accomplishment. They're not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but we have reference points. So for all of us that are focused on that, have you seen what happens in the conventional economics and economies and models of governance and, you know, systems of education? The first thing that happens, the funds for humanities, for arts, for cultural programs, for all of that are cut, right? My proposition, and especially proposition confirmed by the situation with the pandemic, is to apply that paradox. When you need to invest in those things that we think don't make up a life because it's mere survival, right? But the only way you can create sustenance, the only way you can create meaning to sustain human spirit, to even make eating possible and meaningful, is to actually invest in that which moves human ingenuity and human spirit. So what if we applied the paradox exactly at the time when everybody would apply the measure of cutting funds for those things? We put the largest investment into arts and culture, which is directly into people, to heal, to revitalize, to uncork the genius, to empathically connect, to bond, to build solidarity, compassion, to make initiatives like yours possible, to spread and grow. What if we did something like that? And in fact, I mean, if we wanted to use statistics, and I have numbers that I can use with you, but you can find that. You can find information, but you need to develop interpretation for guidance. So we know for a fact that in 5 years post-adoption of SDGs, at the 2019 summit that assessed, 4 years after, that assessed how we're tracking, one of the key underutilized and neglected areas was engaging culture and arts for systems change for SDGs. It's a sleeping giant. It's a sleeping giant. So that's one of the measures. Now, and thank you for this exceptionally powerful question, Jerome. The question of developing countries. Imagine this model. Guess who would be invested in the most? Who are the people? Who are the communities? What are the regions in the world that possess enormous social and cultural capital? In fact, who are the societies, the communities, the regions that sometimes live solely on social and cultural capital? These are the people that make way out of no way. These are the people like, an initiative in Latin America where children out of trash made instruments and played harmony. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, these are the people that are making way out of no way because that's all they have. Imagine what would happen exponentially if we invested there, but also if we learned from them. Because this one-sided mentality where the supposedly developed, industrialized societies are imparting civilization on others is suicidal. Not to mention that it's arrogant, but it's suicidal and fratricidal. I mean, I should say matricidal and all kinds of things. It's brutal, it's violent, and we've seen it. But to cut ourselves off from the knowledge, multi-directional knowledge that we can get from all these communities is, my goodness, what we would unleash. And finally, to remind ourselves, I would plead with all developing countries, please do not emulate, do not imitate industrialized countries. Do not. The leapfrogging, the jumping over, the renewables, the free photons are the way which we have. And we have the wherewithal, we have the ways. Not to mention the fact, for God's sake, I mean, 21st century is the information century. It's the century of memes, codes, of cultural content. I mean, look at Facebook. Somebody capitalized on that. But the internet was funded by public funding, meaning our money, our wealth funded the research for internet. And then we have become somebody else's contents. So in the new era, in the era of coding, of cultural memes, where generating the cultural content is the wealth, I think we stand the best chance now.
Thank you, Mila. I completely agree. That was an amazing answer. And I really liked how you acknowledged the social and cultural capitals that many countries and regions have and how this can really be taken into account. Now I would like to hand it over to Ana Carrillo, who will be asking the next question.
Hello, good morning. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm Ana from Mexico. So my question is, what is transformational leadership and what role can it play in solving the environmental crisis?
Every time I get amazed by your questions, because the only reason I can give answers like this is because you ask questions like that. That is part of the transformational leadership that we are co-creating right now. So I'm grateful for you giving me, for co-evolving with me. The transformational leadership is exactly what we have sampled just now. There are multiple practices that you can apply, some of them through arts and cultural, experiential designs, to uncork that potential in the individual. But the quintessential, the essential message of transformational leadership is the consciousness has to evolve. And the irony of this postulate is not because we have to will it. It will evolve us if we don't. That's the power of this message, that whether we choose to evolve or not, the life that is within us will evolve us, sometimes at perilous cost, sometimes by dissolving something to rebuild something else, right? But the crux, the heart of transformational leadership is to consciously choose your evolution. To find ways, and there are technologies, inner technologies, external development in all possible ways for a wholesome development, to actually unleash that genius. That's the seed, that's the spirit. The genius means the spirit of the human that is already in you. If it's already in you, it's gifted as a birthright for you to play with. That's your medium. That's our medium. The life in you, the breath in you, the mental capacities, the sensory capacities, and transcendental capacities, the aspiration for the higher meaning, if that's how you want to define it. What we call spirituality, right? The desire for transcendental, for higher meaning, for purpose. You already have it. Your purpose is the love for the planet, the love for your life, the love for other life forms, right? And then passing out, disseminating that knowledge. So the essence, the core of the transformational leadership is already seated in you. It's a question of how, what you're asking me, Anna, how, like this, showing up, like I was saying, for yourself every day, recommitting. Takes a lot of energy, a lot of courage, right? A lot of vulnerability to say, I'm broken, the world is broken, and the two are correlated. The world is broken because it's breaking individuals, and the individuals are breaking the world with a certain mindset. So evolving the mindset, consciously choosing the direction of your growth, consciously choosing the quality of your growth, consciously making that crucial shift at the threshold of decision. And I have always been fascinated. If we sat down together now outside of what you envisioned to be my conversation with you, but if we sat in a circle like we did in Mexico, we would share these stories. We would share our experiences to understand how they're correlated, and start finding patterns across regions, across lives, and develop a picture that needs to emerge, and then say, is this the direction we want to go? How would we go there? What needs to change within me to bring out more of you and more of us? What do I need from all of us to feel that I'm supported more for who I need to be? So these are some of the, just kind of a sampling of the essence and a sampling, but it takes, this is one of the ways. Of course, one of the ways is arts and science, spiritual science and spirited science. And also one of the ways is exactly what Dr. Pachauri did, what you are doing, what Ash is doing, what we continue to do, even when you're exhausted, even when everything's going crazy in the world, you still come back, you still organize something like this, and we still show up, right? So this is one of the ways to do that. But there's also, and that's why I'm passionate about the practice and about having myself to develop as an artist, not talk about art, but be an artist, practicing artist, in order to bring those practices into the scientific communities. And one of the communities that is really open to that is system sciences, right? Or in so much a self-explanatory way. So this is what is possible. This is what's already happening. And one thing I want to point out to you, it feels like we're being an island. It feels like, again, like standing alone in the street. But I promise you, and you have demonstrated that to me, that there are so many powerful practices all around the world. Individuals, communities, organizations, initiatives, movements. The challenge is that we have not collected that neural network for us to see ourselves in that picture. The way the mainstream media is collecting what they filter and choose to infuse the social domain with. We are constantly bombarded by certain things, but we don't see ourselves in a different mirror to say, what would it look like? What would the map of the world look like if, you know, the life signals were pulsing for all these initiatives that are doing this tremendous work that we don't even know about each other, and then drew that picture? It would be like the Milky Way. It would be like the galaxy, like mapping the stars out there and say, oh, we're alive. We are alive. And it's ongoing. And it's happening. And that's how we, in return, by the multiplying power of network, we would be energized to continue to do what you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much for your amazing answer. I think it's really important how you choose to do things and what things you do. And also what you mentioned, sharing your ideas with others and sharing your knowledge with others. It's absolutely incredible how someone else can complete your ideas and how someone else can help you and how you can help others. So yeah, thank you so much for your comments.
And some of you might, I mean, other people are doing that, but some of you might be the designers and the engineers of a platform. I mean, pop movement is one of them, but a platform really where all these best practices plug in and connect. I mean, imagine what that would look like. What if that's one of the projects of say, how do we build this web of collective intelligence? That's other people are doing that as well, but you know that's we don't know which one of you who just say I want to see the picture, I want to see the image of humanity. What do we actually look like?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I wanted today, I mean, I know you probably have a lot of questions, or maybe it's a perfect time to even be silent together for direct transmission. That's what it felt like, right? It felt soft, and there was sweetness of life that we've demonstrated today, that you can be virtual and vibrant and teeming with energy. So we feel each other, we feel the atmosphere that we created, but look at the power of this. It's not in one room. It's in the many rooms and in the many countries by spreading now this atmosphere around us. So I wanted today to share a poem just as an example, small example for me of a moment where I was baffled in a different environment, and out of that came kind of enraged expression. And we should not shy away from that. The outrage is a positive and focused energy, right? And we sure share that. And it is exactly a poem that it was tied to witnessing what's happening to the landscape. I remember moving to Denver, Colorado, which is exceptionally beautiful. part of the world, like this entire gorgeous planet we're privileged to be on. And I saw an enormous scope of expansion, building of infrastructures, building of roads, and the expansion and widening of the roads, that all of a sudden the construction work moved quite into even subdivisions, I mean, where the housing was and everything. So what they needed to do, what they had to do, is build these big cement walls to kind of separate the domains. Speaking of separation, of which Jerome touched upon, and the absurdity. I mean, my God, the absurdity of what we're doing. We might need roads, but we have to keep reinventing and evolving our inventions to truly match our needs. So to make things even more astounding and hurtful, on these big cement walls, they imprinted images of the buffalo. You know this is a sensitive issue. You know this is a profound issue. This is not a pretty painting. This is a painting of a genocide through buffalo. It's an extinction of the species tied to the lives of the native nations. You know, I'm intentionally calling them nations because they've given us constitution in the US, amongst other things, right? Speaking of multi-directional learning and co-learning. So what's at stake is huge here. So you have these huge cement walls with the buffalo, also the birds and grass in the cement, an imprint. And I would be driving every day, spending hours. It's another part of this picture about sustainability. What's sustainable here? My own life for endless hours on the highways. And this is why I want to read this poem to you as a sampling of what moves inside out. It's called "The Buffalo Are on the Move." The buffalo are on the move to downtown Denver, while my 132 horsepower runs parallel saliently. The buffalo are on the move to downtown Denver, their cemented hooves crushing the perfectly engineered creases of iridescent, incandescent grass, grazing their fixed gaze terminally, all male, larger than life. Their dung will never mark this rider with stink, managing worship. The polite guilt raids us no more. They hang on the walls and porches of our timeshares in Crested Butte, grazing the rugs of our hallways, these poets in concrete metaphors. The buffalo are on the move on the T-Rex, by the way, that's the name of the highway. Mythical animals, my foreignness witnessing. My foreignness witnessing the West on the concrete shots projected along the cement screen, racing colossal heads, protecting from breaches of traffic propriety, memorializing wild. This is preservation. So this was my heartbreaking offering to you today. And the only reason it's heartbreaking is to create a breakthrough, an empathetic breakthrough. All the frameworks that we mentioned today, climate change, you know, the epidemic of autoimmune diseases because of air quality, just to name few: migrations, wars, resource grabbing, the pandemic, mental illnesses, gun violence in the US, my God. All of that calls for an empathetic revolution. A true rising together in understanding of the depth of our shared vulnerabilities and the beauty, tremendous beauty of our shared being.
That was truly amazing. I think we are all still um I'm I don't even have words to express how how that poem got to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me with you, for trusting me. This is a tremendous thing for me. And I think the only thing we can do is what Ash did, what I know Patchy, Dr. Pachauri would do. Put your hand on your heart and stand. And stand for your own life, stand for all the lives, stand for the higher meaning of this life. Nobody's going to take the planet with us or the riches, but we will take this experience and the experience of this lifetime and the experience we share. So I know this is the pledge that we share today in the pop movement. That's what we're sharing. The pledge to protect each other's well-being and to realize how interdependent we are, how beautiful we are also in our aspiration, in our struggle. So I am always here. I'm always here for you. I'm a diehard fan, and I'm a diehard artist activist with you, because that's what you guys are. You're social artists. So I'm 100% with you with this commitment and everything that I do. And you can call on me anytime to cheer on, to even meditate with you, to be silently through silent will, spreading the word, and at other places where I've always spoken about your work and took the words of Patchy with me. And I'm very, very, very grateful that by the greater design, he was a part of my path and he is the driving force. Big hug to everybody.
A big hug to you, Mila, and our love and our gratitude. And right now we're not just brimming, but overflowing with profound in sentiment, inspiration, gratitude, knowledge, and wisdom, which has us moved and so full and overflowing that we can't help but want to give and share and do so with our heart. And yet where I think all of us are sort of speechless too, but like you've said, and I always say that you live by, you lead by example, that those sentiments, the art, the science, the transformation, and the sort of humanity that you've shared with us here, that you always share with everybody wherever you go, through whatever means there is. And like you said, you know, sometimes even silence, in silence, it can be so loud. And you know, you are that person. And so with every opportunity that we have, I think we're always so deeply moved. And I just want to say that this is one more, but it's been particularly special as you've shared so much here with us. And I think you've underscored the importance of, you know, staying steadfast, keeping with that commitment, knowing where our hearts are, and being true to our hearts, being true to ourselves, being true to each other. And that's really what it boils down to. And I just also want to say that really thinking back on moments where it could be just one person that has been at the maybe the propelling force at one point in bringing folks together, changing the course of history, you know, using our voice to do it, using the power of music and melody, and sharing our stories. And that's, you know, that's what has perhaps given us the day we are at today, which is, you know, where we're not, where we take, maybe sadly, but take a lot of our freedoms for granted because, you know, people have fought for our rights, human rights. And I know people are still fighting, but we've done it in the past. And it's always boiled down to being human, connecting, and touching. And you've brought up all of those points in such a beautiful, powerful, and moving manner. So I just want to thank you. I mean, I know no words can ever do justice, but for us, being family with you is precious beyond words. And with or without the words, I know we all feel it from the depths of our hearts. And I hope that you feel moved as we send you the energy and the vibration and the love from the depths and the deepest corners of our hearts and our souls and our spirits. So thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
It's been wonderful. We'll see you very soon, right?
Very soon. Absolutely. There's a number of things we're eagerly looking forward to seeking your guidance and wisdom on, and many things I know we'll do and we can only do together. So thank you. Thank you, really.
Thank you.
We- We'd love to get a picture if you agree
Oops.
before we. Okay, anybody who doesn't have their cameras on but would be able to turn them on, please do. And I'm gonna get a screen grab. Thank you. And I'm gonna send that to everyone. Thank you so much, and a big hug and lots of love. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Stay well.
See you
Thank you,
soon,
Thank you
Mila.
Mila,
so
See
much,
you.
Mila.
Thank
This
you.
was
and
amazing.
thank you
Thank you, Dr. Norma.
to
Bye.
the
Thank
entire
you.
family. Thank you all.